to reconvene our business meeting.
So move.
Do we have a second?
Recording in progress.
It's been properly moved by Commissioner Vice President Webb and seconded by Commissioner Malone that the board now return to this meeting in the public. You heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? There being none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed have the same right. Motion carried.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you all again for your patience while we convene an executive session. We'll now have a presentation from the superintendent. Mr. Hassan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, I'd like to call up Dr. Jean Gordon, our Chief of Instruction and Programs. She will be providing us with a presentation on data, access, and NJ GPA data for the district. I would also just like to add an additional update. I neglected to mention this when I provided my report. Earlier today, myself and Dr. Filipados, our Chief of Student Services, we had the opportunity to meet with one of the co-leaders of the CPAC group. After receiving information from board member Azim Gray, highlighting some concerns from the group, we had a very productive meeting with them today to outline our path forward to further collaborate and to support the CPAC, which is an extension of the Plainfield Public School District, to ensure they have access to resources that will allow them to effectively execute programming, workshops for parents to educate them on their rights and how to navigate processes and procedures that relate to special education. Again, it was a very fruitful meeting, and we look forward to our continued partnership. As it stands, the group aims to host up to 5 workshops or programs during the course of the year. Our commitment as a district is to support them with the financial resources to execute 3 of those programs and to provide them with additional resources to generate flyers, marketing materials, and to help push forward their efforts by sharing our communication channels as well. So we'll continue to, again, advance that partnership. I wanted to provide that update.
Thank you very much for allowing me to present this evening. Hassan. Hear me out?
It's not gonna get on the Zoom call.
No.
Testing.
Very much. Good evening, Madam President and members of the Commissioner of the Board of Education of Plainfield Public Schools. Thank you for allowing me to report our 2024 Spring NJGPA and Access 2.0 scores. Good evening. The objective of this presentation is to ensure transparency regarding our students' performance, proficiency, as well as growth on statewide assessments and analysis of the current cohorts, comparison data, intervention strategies that correspond to 2 major focus areas of data, which are the 2024 NJGPA, which stands for the New Jersey Graduation Proficiency Assessment results that are given to all 11th graders in Plainfield Public Schools, and the Spring 24 Access 2.0 results that are given to every kindergartner through 12th grade student that has tested within a range for the WIDA or the screener assessment for language proficiency. Before we jump into going through the data, We would like to highlight some of the notable achievements that we've made throughout the school year 23-24. First off, we had 54 students earn a seal of biliteracy during the 23-24 school year, a seal of biliteracy on their diploma, and it's recognized in the graduation program. We had 129 students were enrolled in a dual enrollment course. That is 129 unique students. That doesn't mean they're repeated courses. They're unique students. They could have taken 3 courses, 2 courses, 1, but there's 129 students that were enrolled in dual enrollment courses. We had an NJGPA math result increase by 1.3 percentile points. We strengthened our multi-tiered system of support for students who needed interventions in all of our grade levels for our language proficiency, as well as the 11th grade. We have established data teams under the supervision of Ms. Erika Yabata through our data office at each school. We have intervention courses at the high school. They are working well, especially when the students are attendant. The consistency of attendance has shown growth in our students throughout the 23-24 school year. We've had an increase in advanced placement ELA courses as well as other ELA courses, and the additional dual enrollments at NJIT, Bard College, as well as math courses throughout the year. So these are some of the notable achievements we've made over the 23-24 school year. Along with our notable achievements, we also have developed for the 24-25 school year a strategic plan that addresses many areas that we need as a school district to improve our students' results on both of these assessments. Even though both assessments will measure different content areas and languages, we have these programs and intervention programs for both our students that sit in multilingual as well as our students that take the NJGPA for English, language arts, and mathematics. Our first area that we have increased upon are our student programs. If I put a slide together of the number of student programs that we offer to a Plainfield Public School students, it is about 3 slides. So overall, some of the highlights we've had our STEM Academy, our Visual Performing Arts Academy. We've had a multilingual after-school program. We will be adding the additional Saturday Academy for our ESL students. We've had extended school year for our special education students, over 1,700 students in summer learning, just to highlight several of the programs which we've done throughout the 23-24 school year. New programs that we're adding for 24-25 include a Saturday Newcomers Academy for our students that are new to the country, a United Way mentoring partnership at our high school levels, a Boxwood partnership at Plainfield High School, parent learning academies that will be hosted out of the Instruction and Programming Office, as well as free tutoring online through Varsity Tutors. Professional development. Some of the professional development that we have increased this year is we're going to target instructional practices for core subject areas, which means we will be doing cross-content areas such as your humanities courses, such as social studies will be reinforced in language arts skills, science and math will be crossing over to reinforce mathematics skills. We are going towards a math fluency and building math fluency at K-5 through centers-based instruction. We are having discourse in mathematics on speaking mathematics across the disciplines. Data-driven instruction, which is going to be one of the prime areas that you will see, high emphasis on data-driven instruction, where we have worked with our data department, Ms. Abada, as well as our Director of Curriculum Instruction, Dr. Omenya, and have put together specific data points that we're going to talk each month. We need to talk data to walk the talk with it. So as you see, our professional development is going to be ingrained not only in our content area and teaching strategies in our special populations, it's going to be as well as curriculum analysis and realigning our standards. Now taking a good deep analysis of the resources that we're using with our students. One of the things I found by taking a deep dive in the data, the questions our students are being asked aren't questions that we're asking them on the everyday basis. So we want to make sure that we have a deep analysis in a type of resources and questions that we're doing with our students. We want to have partnerships. Over this year, we have well over a dozen partnerships that we've added on to the partners that we already had in the prior school year. The Parent Learning Academy, which hopefully will be kicking off in November, will be available in person as well as online for our parents to view both English and Spanish. We have been putting together, and our goal is to get out 12 instructional videos for this school year for our parents. But the high emphasis that we have is on data-driven decision-making. Just by looking at a student's progress on any of these assessments, we can actually move forward and see how our students and what resources would actually meet their needs. The interventions in curriculum. One of the things that we're very proud of under the direction of Ms. Lynn Larry is the personalized learning plans that will be through grades 6 through 12, eventually K through 12 for each of our individualized programs. Curriculum updates, constantly curriculum updates, revised multi-tiering teaching plan for our bilingual students. And this is just a number of the few interventions that we will be utilizing with the curriculum analysis and resources. So our first two slides that we have here for the NJGPA are the compliancy slides that we have to present to the public each year. Within 60 days of receiving the scores, we have to present them publicly to the Board of Education. We received the scores around June 14th, which puts us within the 60-day timeframe. The actual state mandate is for all 11th grade students that take, whether they take ELA or math or don't, have to sit for this assessment. The graduation readiness is a report separate for each content area. The ELA components are aligned to the 10th grade curriculum, and the mathematics component is aligned to the geometry and algebra 1 curriculums or standards. This was adopted by the State Board of Education in 2023 as part of the graduation requirements for this current school year. So this is the first graduating class since the pandemic that has a required assessment to meet the graduation requirements for the New Jersey Department of Education. Okay, if a student does not pass or meet the minimum on the NJGPA, we also have different pathways that they can choose, such as the PSAT, SAT, ACT, portfolio assessments that allows them to graduate using an alternate pathway as well. So this is not the end all be all for a student. So looking at our spring participation rate, at Plainfield High School, we had 486 students take language arts. At PAS, 57 take language arts. And Pinnacle Academy, 33 students taking the language arts component of the NJGPA. At Plainfield High School, we had 481 take mathematics, 58 at PAS, and 35 students at Pinnacle Academy. Overall, the district-wide, we do a comparison of the district-wide. Last year in English Language Arts, we were 48% of our students were graduation ready. We dropped by 0.8 percentile points from last year to this year. So our students dropped from 48%. They're not the same students. They're different groups of students. Did drop to 47.2% of our students being graduation ready in language arts. We are very short of the state average of 80.5. In mathematics, we did increase by 1.4 percentile points from 16% to 17.4%. What we have found as we analyzed our data for all three schools was that we are not asking our students the same questions they're being tested on. And that puts them at a disadvantage. So we have to up our game with professional development, with rigor, and the type of questions that they're being asked. An example I can give you would be simple enough as if I have 8 times 4, what 2 statements can represent 8 times 4? It could be 8 rows with 4 chairs in each, or it could be 8 chairs on one side of the room and 4 on the other. Which one actually represents the multiplication of 8 times 4? It's no longer asking us or the students, what is 8 times 4? They want a representation of what 8 times 4 represents, and they had to choose 2 of the 5 correct answers. That was a lower end question. We also did find that some of our assessments, benchmark assessments that we are providing through our students, we're all giving very low level rigor questions, tier 1 questions. So we have redesigned with Ms. Abada, Ms. Ripollette, the instructional coaches, as well as the INP supervisor and director of curriculum and instruction. We have rewritten all of our assessments. So our test questions are more like what our students are exposed to, and we're going to expose them to those type of questions every day so they understand that this is more about thinking and logic than it is to actually solve a problem. Because when you see 8 times 4, you automatically got to think, oh, what's 8 times 4? But they have to actually have to represent those components. So we are looking at the way we are delivering curriculum, and each month there will be a topic that our staff will be exposed to for a strategy to help those students as well. So looking at our cohort groups are special population groups such as economically disadvantaged, special education, multilingual, and 504. What we look for is we look for our notable achievements. The notable achievements that we have found within these tested areas for ELA specifically is our economically disadvantaged students did increase by 4.5 percentile points. So we are chipping away at these subgroups. Our special education students increased graduation readiness for language arts by 12.3%. The normal average is between 3 to 7%. They surpassed that with 12.3%. Our multilingual students' graduation readiness increased by 5.8 percentile points from 2023. And also our 504 students, our 504 learners increased by 63.3%. All of our students that had a 504 this year did pass the language arts literacy component of it. As you can see, what is happening is that if you have a student that sits in one of these cohorts, we are chipping away at the cohorts. Our next cohort is cohort by race for English language arts. As you can see, our Hispanic Latino learners increased graduation readiness by 1 percentile point. And again, you have to remember, as a whole, we did decrease by 0.8, which is rounded up to 1 percentile point. Our African-American students are starting to close that achievement gap, where we have more students that are college readiness at the high school level than that are not college ready. So we're hoping to see within the next 2 to 3 years that shift of blue outweighing the red. But we did have notable achievements by race for our Hispanic population. And please remember, these students that take this assessment is given in English for English language arts. Cohort program again for mathematics, economically disadvantaged, special education, 504 and multilingual students. Our economically disadvantaged increased graduation readiness by 3 percentile points from 2023. Our special education increased by 1 percentile point from 2023. And our multilingual, again, 6.1% from 2023. The state average is between 3 to 7% a year that you would increase on this. So our cohorts are starting to really make gains on this as well. One of the things that I will highlight for our special education is we did realign our entire math 9 through 12 program for the 24-25 school year for special education, as well as for this test, students that are multilingual students and score a certain number on the access test, they are allowed to take the assessment in Spanish. This is the only assessment where a student can take if they have a certain score in their native language. So we are ramping up the materials for students that are scoring on the low end of the access score so that they're able to get that academic contrastive analysis vocabulary for those students. By race, our Latino Hispanic population increased by 1.4 percentile points from the prior year, and our African-American Black students increased by 1 percentile point from the prior school year. Okay. And as I explained earlier, the type of questioning that is asked are not rote math problems like 8 times 4, or we have a simple mathematics. It deals with a lot of language arts literacy and understanding the academic vocabulary that goes into it. And we have addressed that through curriculum alignment and corrective action plans for both language arts literacy and mathematics through the content area supervisors. Okay. At this point, do we have any questions on the GPA component? If not, we can save them to the end as well. Yes, Mr.
I just
Greiger.
have a quick question. Is it the practice to sort of like look at the state average? Title I districts.
So currently, the NJDOE does not provide any comparison districts since this test is so new. It is less than a year. It's really a year old. Its year birthday was May 3rd, 2024. So we have no comparison districts of like districts like Plainfield or Title I districts at this time. I'm hoping the NJDOE does come out with that because that does help us collaborate with other districts. Okay. This K-12 Access 2.0 for multilingual learners. This is one of the first years that we are presenting this data to the public. And it is given in the spring of 2024. We actually start in February and the test window runs for about a month. This is a large scale test that tests English language proficiency assessment from kindergarten students to 12th graders. And you have to understand the window usually closes around March 29th. If I have a student enter the district on March 27th, we have to administer the Access 2.0 test to them. So this is an assessment where up until the day that the window closes is when we have to have the ability to administer the test to the students. The students are tested in 4 major domains. And it is an electronic test mainly for grades 1 through 12 and a written test or a one-on-one test for kindergarten students. There's 4 domains: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. The administration online is exempt for kindergarten. That is actually done and does take a good amount of time for our teachers that are certified to administer this test to provide it one-on-one to kindergartners. What is interesting is the interpretation of scores. There are actually 6 levels. Level 1, it means that you're entering the English language, 1 to a 1.9. Level 2 is emerging or beginning. It depends on the resources you use. Is a 2.0 to 2.9. Level 3 is developing, 3.0 to 3.9. Expanding is 4.0 to 4.9. To exit the bilingual or multilingual program in the state of New Jersey, you need to score an average of all 4 domains of a 4.5. So students that are bridging, which means they've surpassed what the state standard is 5.0 to 5.9. And if they reach the English language proficiency, that would be a solid 6. Every student that puts on a registration form that their home language is other than English is given the initial screener to determine what their initial WIDA level would be, 1 to 6. So this year, the way that we break it down is by your cohorts K-5 and then 6 through 12. We had a total of 2,745 students be assessed in the WIDA 2.0 Access 2.0 assessment, and 186 of them reached that 4.5. As you could see, as you get up higher in the grades, the numbers will increase. But we have developed a new tiering program for our English language learners, where we will be exposing them more towards the English language and comprehension of the English language, along with contrastive analysis, to assist our students with acquisition to the English language proficiency. In grades 6 through 12, we had 1,680 students assessed during this time, and 32 of those students exited. So what we are finding, and we are trying to add more value to this assessment, is that our students that are in the high school level, we could tell by how long they take the test. If it takes them less than 6 minutes to take a section of the test, all they did was click the answers. And we're finding that we have to find another way for our students to be able to find this test to be more valuable, because having only 2 students that are in grade 12 reach a 4.5, a majority of them, when we looked at the analysis of time on test, was extremely low. The test does take about 30 to 35 minutes. This is a 3-year trend analysis, and this is eye-opening to us as an instruction and programming department, because what is happening is we're making progress with our 1s and our 2s, bringing our 1s to the 2s, then we bring them to the level 3, but we don't get them past the level 3, which means we have to expose them to more academic vocabulary in both the native language as well as English. And as you could see in all 3 of these areas, K5, 6, 8, and 9, 12, our students are staggering from 2022 to 2024, moving from the green to the blue to the purple, and eventually to the top green for the reaching. So we have started to prepare our coaches to go in to work on contrastive analysis, how to utilize vocabulary, how to utilize academic vocabulary for these individuals. And normally the state is saying it would take a student that came here 4 to 5 years to exit the program. That is what the state average is. Okay. Any additional questions at this time? And we will have another presentation in October to report out our NJSLA scores, which are from grades 3 through 9th grade. Mr. Hassan?
I just got a quick question
Sure,
on
Mr. Gray.
that parent leadership academy.
It's the parent, yeah, it's basically, yes.
I'm very overly excited about
So
it,
am I.
and I'm glad you guys are doing it. Just like can you explain that? Like, how does it work?
So what we're doing is we're going to have our content area supervisors be presenting out to parents. We will and also be able to videotape those components, as well as doing some castifies and screencasting of short videos in English and in Spanish to assist with our parents that aren't able to come to go on and click. So if your student is working on a math for fractions, it'll be a short tutorial to help the parent. We also have worked out with our book vendors, access to their resources and allowed to put their resources within our website. So parents can go in, and if they're in a module where they're working on long E, it will actually have tutorials to help the parent, and we'll have some live sessions as well.
Thank you so much for explaining. I really
That's,
appreciate that.
we're extremely excited about that. When I brought it up to Mr. Hassan, I've been looking at several districts, and we as a team felt this was something that was definitely needed.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Thank you for the.
I have a question whenever I may ask.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gordon. Just on as it pertains to the ELL sections, is there a particular section that's more problematic than others? Is it the speaking portion, or the comprehension, or the vocabulary, in your perspective?
Yeah, so from our deep dive analysis, the area that is the lowest and pulling our students down is speaking. So we have been visiting for the last 6 months our bilingual classes on the weeks that they are in English, and are finding that we are not, staff is not trained enough to provide some of the strategies. So we are moving into that. So we need to allow our students to speak more. One of the things that we have done was purchased English 3D. And that we utilized last year, grades 3 through 12. We'll be utilizing it from K to 12 this year. And that allowed for more of a speaking component, so students can actually conversate with each other and help each other. And that was one of the things we found, was that there was not enough time or not enough time given to allowing students to speak in the English language. So that was one of the things that we found. And another component that we're going to be doing is on Fridays during our ESL period, we are going to be giving students the ability to practice speaking into a microphone, into a specific program for specifically our multilingual students so that they're used to it and not have to get to the test the first time in February or March and not have that ability to feel comfortable speaking into a headset to the program itself. So that's going to help them. And it also allow them to replay it back to themselves so they can hear themselves reading, they can hear themselves speaking, answering the questions, and that will help our teachers to help our students with the data to drive the instructional strategies that they need. So we need to do a better job as instructional programming and providing that professional development.
Is the speaking a function of the test? In other words, can the test comprehend accented English or English that is, I guess not fully proficient yet, but there is an understanding there?
I'm going to assume from the Wisconsin component that runs Access 2.0 that they're basically using mostly AI to grade their assessments. I don't believe that there is a live component as quick as we get the scores back. But yes, it is sensitive to native tongue and accent as well. As long as we can't hear how they're speaking on the access test, we don't get those results back. But with the new program that we will be utilizing on Fridays, we will be able to help the students. And one of the things that we have adopted in the K2 is structured literacy. And one of the things that comes with it is speaking and watching yourself in a mirror, making the pronunciations of sounds and so forth. So that is going to help us better use data to drive the instructional strategies we need for these students. But it does pick up strong accents. It does pick up a good component of it because we can actually predict our students that are really newcomers to the district with their accent ability. But our high school students, we have to have more of it. We have to figure out an incentive for them to really be more engaged in this assessment.
So then perhaps, in addition to adjusting some of the approach that we're taking with educators, are we considering adding additional speech therapists or professionals that can address the diction and the accented speaking?
So that would have to be something I would have to speak with Mr. Hassan about. But normally, for students that come in, unless it's a classified diagnosed speech impediment or disorder, they would not get a speech therapist. But what we are doing is we're training our teachers now how to pick up and vocalize and have to teach the students to make sure they're using the right frame of the tongue, of the mouth, of the lips to correspond the sounds out correctly. So that is one of the things that we're doing with our students. But if you see the number of students that we actually test, I mean, if you add the two numbers together, you're looking at 2,700 and 1,600 students. We would never have enough speech therapists to do that. So we need to get our ESL teachers on board to understand that component of the language acquisition. And
Great, thank you. Are there ahead of the actual test? I know you mentioned some previews and things like that, but is there a way to gauge if this is the area that speaking is one of the areas that seems to be problematic for some students? Is there a way to get ahead of that where maybe not all of the 300, 250, all of the students are necessarily getting those services, but if there are a small subset of that student population that does need that support, is there a way to identify that ahead of time?
Yes, that's identified through student services and the IRNS process that a student would go through to eventually get those services. But for now, what we're going to be using is our Mira. Our ESL teachers will have access to a Mira, where students will actually, they read into it to get their reading level so we can hear specific sounds students are having more difficulty with than others, and what students are having those individualized problems. And eventually, if there is a diagnosed speech disorder, we can refer them through the proper channels for the district.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Again, thank you for the
Thank you, Dr. Gordon.
presentation, Dr. Gordon. While we are on the topic of performance for our multilingual learners, I'd like to just share and announce that my administration is moving forward with the pilot program for the 24-25 school year. And that is to implement, to pilot 2 full English immersion programs in the district. One pilot will take place at Clinton Elementary School, and the second will take place at Cook Elementary School. I want to first start by stating that this is a very controversial matter, particularly for school districts. When we have conversations with family members and with staff members, there's been concerns and I think a very strong undertone that there are efforts by districts and even our district to rob students of their culture. I want to make it perfectly clear that that is not the intention of Plainfield Public Schools. We are an inclusive school district, an inclusive school community. But as we see, and you've heard from Dr. Gordon, we are really tasked as a school district to ensure that our students are able to acquire, to become fluent and competent in the English language. Right? We don't have the ability as a school district to turn that switch on and off when our students are seated or being prepared to perform on the state's test. Right? So our expectation is that we partner with our parents during this process. We want to make sure that we are supportive for parents, and we push them to also ensure that every aspect of their culture continues to be shared and expanded upon within their households as well. Our responsibility as a district is to ensure that our curriculum is inclusive and that every student in our school community sees themselves and their culture being represented in our activities, in our curriculum, and everything that we do. So we're going to continue to do that, but we will pilot those full immersion programs, and hopefully we will get the results that we're looking for, and that will allow us to make an even better decision in terms of modifying our programs for the 25-26 school year. Right. Nick, can you mind putting that the presentation back up, sir? One agenda item we have tonight is the adoption of district goals for the 24-25 school year. Just want to take a moment to reiterate what those proposed goals are that were presented to the board on July 9th. The first goal, which focuses on academic proficiency. Our academic proficiency goal is as follows. By June 2025, the district will achieve year-over-year improvement in overall student academic growth and proficiency with a specific focus on ELA and math. This will be measured through internal and standardized assessments considering individual subgroup performance with district-level targets of 45.8% proficiency in ELA and 41.9% proficiency in math as projected by the ESSA interim targets. I want to reiterate that the ESSA interim targets not only have district level goals, which are highlighted here in the SMART goal, it has school level targets, and there are also targets for each individualized student group. That means there's a specific target for our students who are in our special education programs, a specific target for our students who are multilingual learners, and there are even specific targets for ethnic groups as well. The reason that we've shifted towards the focus of utilizing the ESSA interim targets is that our own Department of Education heavily focuses on the results and our ability to achieve or exceed these goals. This also feeds into federal accountability requirements as well. So we're thinking about, having a streamlined approach and making sure that we are also shooting for the stars that have been identified for us as a school district. This allows us to really shift our mindset to stop focusing on growth and to go all in on proficiency. If you focus on growth, you might not necessarily meet proficiency targets. But if we achieve and exceed our proficiency targets, we're always going to show strong growth. Right? You can't get the proficiency without the growth, but you can get the growth without proficiency sometimes. So as urban school districts, we're often coached and told that when we stand before our boards, when we don't have good results and we don't have good performance as it relates to proficiency, go to the growth. I always talk about the growth that's being made for students. Well, here's the reality. If a student just came to school half of the time, they're going to show some kind of growth because they're going to be introduced to concepts at the middle of the school year that they weren't introduced to at the beginning of the school year. That really is, I think, the low-hanging fruit. Our students deserve better. We deserve better. As it relates to our accountability here on the board for our individualized subgroups, I do look forward to us collaborating to ensure that my administration keeps a finger on the pulse and is able to accurately capture the performance of our student subgroups and report that out to the board in a way that is meaningful and allows us to make the proper adjustments and continue to have an enhanced focus for our student subgroups, which ultimately impact the district's overall performance. I will tell you with 100% certainty, there is no way that we will make any of these proficiency targets if our student subgroups don't make drastic improvements in the areas of ELA and math. Goal 2, which focuses on graduation and secondary success. By June 2025, at least 87.2% of high school students will graduate within cohort as projected by ESSA interim targets. Additionally, all graduating students will have well-defined post-secondary plans in line with the district's 4Es model. Concurrently, the district will work towards increasing dual enrollment and AP course participation to at least 35% of eligible students by 2028, with an interim target of 20% for the 24-25 school year. We set the target last school year at 15%, so we're increasing that to 20, and we're coming off of a great year, 23-24. We were able to increase our participation for AP and IB courses to roughly 13%, right? And that was with a baseline of 10%, so we saw almost about a 3% gain. And in the area of dual enrollment courses, we had a baseline of 0. However, we reported to the board that we had an increase, an attainment of 12.4% as it relates to our participation in our dual enrollment programs. We look forward to those results being finalized by the DOE, and that will be available to us August 31st in the NJ's Smart Snapshot report. So again, continuing to move the needle, I think that target of 35% by 2028, it's aggressive, but it definitely is doable. And by hitting that target, it will either put us on target or have us outpacing the performance at the state level, which I think is where we want to see ourselves as a school district, right? When we're having conversations about what attracts families to our school district, you think about these opportunities and how they help set students up for success, right? After they leave our school districts, go on to college, et cetera. A student who was able to come in and show their portfolio and to be able to highlight their participation in AP courses and also dual enrollment courses, we know what that financial impact is and what it does for students who come from low or moderate income households. Goal 3 focuses on climate and culture. The goal is as follows. By June 2025, the district will retain 90% of staff annually through targeted retention strategies and achieve a district-wide student attendance rate of 92% or greater through proactive measures and parent engagement. Concurrently, we will foster a positive school culture and climate by increasing positive culture indicators by 25% and reducing student incidents of violence, vandalism, and confirmed HIB cases by 25%. Those are the cases that are reported on the SSDS report to the Department of Education. I'm happy to state that as we've closed out our 23-24 school year, we have the final report on the SSDS incidents for Plainfield Public Schools. We had a total of 211 SSDS incidents reported in the 22-23 school year. The district had 110 SSDS incidents reported for the 23-24 school year. We've already reduced the student incidents of violence district-wide by roughly 52%. And I attribute that, the data supports this as well, to the great work that's being done across the district, but mainly at Plainfield High School, where we saw the highest reduction of incidents of violence amongst our students. And we believe that that is a direct result of our community lunch period and our instructional flex periods that we've implemented at the secondary level in the district. Moving on to Goal 4, which focuses on community engagement. By June 2025, the district will develop and implement a comprehensive communications plan aimed at increasing community engagement. Success will be measured by the establishment of new partnerships, a net promoter score of 20%, and an increase in the district's Let's Talk customer score to 9. Additionally, the district will achieve higher participation rates in community feedback surveys, indicating improved community perception and involvement. Goal 5 focuses on finance and operations. By June 2025, the district will expand revenue by securing an additional $1 million annually through state funding and other alternative revenue sources. Concurrently, the district will update all facilities in alignment with the approved 20-year capital maintenance and long-range facilities plan, ensuring that these updates are completed on schedule and within budget. So, if you think about ways that this is monitored, obviously we can always show reports, right, that indicate the amount of alternative revenue that is received by our district. However, as we start to really get into the nuts and bolts of our 20-year capital maintenance plan and long-range facilities plans, we have checklists. Obviously, we bring those to the board for those items to the board for approval when we need to make updates to any of those plans. And we think of whether or not any of the projects are updated and completed on schedule and within budget. When we move forward and we roll out a project, if something has to be, if we have to add additional funds to that project, you will see that as a board in the form of a change order, right? So the checks and balances are there. And I think this is really important for us because this all ties into, again, our climate and culture, ensuring that our buildings are well cared for, but that we're also doing what we need to do as an administration to contribute our fair share by bringing alternative revenue sources into the district. Are there any questions, points of discussion as it relates to the proposed district goals?
We have questions from commissioners at this time.
So just got a question. So we obtain information pertaining to the charters, right? And I know statutorily we cannot do anything about the charters, right? But we do review their budget. We do review things via an annual report. Is there something that the board is willing to do in order to hold charters accountable locally?
Oh, can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, I think the way that charters are structured in New Jersey is the charters have one authorizer and right now, and that is the Commissioner of Education. The charters are required to provide an annual report that goes to the Department of Education and to the school district. That is due by August 1st. The school district has the opportunity to review that report and provide comments to the Department of Education. But that is the district's role when it comes to actually monitoring the charters, so that the district's opportunity to provide insight, if you will, is insight that goes to the Department of Education through the review of that annual report.
Thank you.
So, great question, Mr. Grant. I know there's been some email exchanges and some back and forth about it. So at this point, my office has received all annual charter school reports. Two of them were submitted late. I did respond to those charter schools, request that they be submitted to my office immediately. I copied our board president and vice president on those communications. I've shared via email this afternoon with all commissioners a link to those reports, and some of them include appendices. I kindly ask that each commissioner reviews and analyzes those reports, and by September 15th provides me with some feedback via email. I will then take all of the feedback that is provided and incorporate that into a written response, right? So one written response for every charter school, right, based on what we review in the annual report. And I would tell you, there are a few things that are very glaring to me. We kind of know these things as educators and practitioners, but you will see it yourselves when you go into the reports. It is not an apples to apples comparison when you look at the student population that we serve here in Plainfield Public Schools, when you compare us to our counterparts in charter schools who are also serving students in the city of Plainfield. And for me, it really boils down to a matter of equity. When you look at particularly the size of the subgroups, if you will, you look at the percentage of multilingual learners that are being supported by charter schools in comparison to the district. When you look at the percentage of students in special education programs as serviced by our counterparts in charter schools versus what the district is supporting, it is not an apples to apples comparison. And when you disaggregate our data as Plainfield Public Schools, you'll see that our students who are in our general education program, they do pretty well. We're very close to those ESSA interim targets if you just look at our general education students. What it says is obviously we have more work to do to help support our subgroups, but I think it also means that there's room for conversation about everybody who's in this educational ecosystem. The question we should be asking is, how is everybody contributing and supporting and doing what they need to do to make a fair share contribution, if you will, to all of our students? If you took any one of our schools and said, hey, you know what, principal such and such, we're going to give you a student body that doesn't have multilingual learners or doesn't have students receiving special education services, I guarantee you that school will outperform every other school in the district. It's just a matter of fact. So I think that's something that if there's one thing I would ask board members to like really closely pay close attention to, it's the rosters and what those student subgroups look like at each of the schools. So I'll be disaggregating that data and putting it into a table, because I think that's a huge part of whatever our responses are, just at a high level.
And can I just make one more comment, Madam President? So in terms of the state aid budget, right? Because I know some back and forth with the state concerning the budget and, you know, if the numbers are final, but $30 million of our budget, half of that, right? Or whatever, more than half went to charters, right? So $17 million went to charters, right? With little or no accountability from this board here, right? Thank you.
Was that a statement or a question?
No, it was like he's confirming that we have little oversight over the amount of the vast majority of the money that went to charters. I'm just confirming that he's like nodding his head.
So yes, because we don't control that, but there are two things that I think are important for us to know. One, we as a school district hold charter schools accountable. Their annual aid statements indicate the number of students they're supposed to serve during the course of the year. So let's say it's charter school, is supposed to support 1,000 students, but during the course of the year, their enrollment is only 900. Before we close our books at the end of the year, we do a look back, we get an updated aid document from the Department of Education, and we go back and we recoup those funds from charter schools. So the last 2 years, we've recouped north of $500,000 from charter schools because of those changes and modifications that have happened during the course of the year. I think other ways for us to really drive the accountability, we offer and invite our charter school leaders to come in and meet with myself and my administration once per month to talk about some of those issues that you address in emails. What's happening with parents who decide they want to enroll their child in a charter school and they go there and the school says, oh no, you have an IEP, we don't provide those services, go back to Plainfield Public Schools. I don't want to paint the picture that we have a bunch of bad actors in the community, because that's not the case, right? There are some school districts, some charter schools who work very well with our team to make sure that those issues are addressed. I'm the superintendent of Plainfield Public Schools. However, we also have to be honest, like a child who lives in the city of Plainfield is a kid who lives in the city of Plainfield. And whether that child fails or succeeds, when he or she goes out into the world, whether they make it to the Olympics, they're not going to say that kid went to such and such school. They're going to say that kid's from Plainfield, New Jersey. When that kid becomes a CEO or CFO or whatever, they're going to say that kid is from Plainfield, New Jersey. I don't think we want to have the conversation to drive dissension. We want to drive accountability, and we want to talk about ways that will allow us to operate the ecosystem more efficiently, more effectively, and to hold everybody accountable for doing their fair share.
Absolutely.
That's all I have on that, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Hassan. We don't have any more questions, right? Okay.
I just have one question, Madam President.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Verdon.
And goal number 4, I believe, can you just explain or expand upon the new partnerships and what that might mean, or how that relates to the overall goal? I know that I think it's been changed from high quality partnerships, which is something I mentioned in the last meeting, but can you
Yeah,
just expand upon it a bit, please?
yeah. So that's a great question. I have a draft rubric that I'd like to share with the board. I'll send that out via email to get some feedback. So when we think about partnerships, I think as educators in the space, I don't know where the nomenclature has come from, but we have a tendency to describe partnerships sometimes or label relationships with vendors as partnerships, when in reality we're paying for goods or services. So I'm not necessarily sure if you could call that, if you would describe that as being a high quality partnership. I'm paying you for something, you're supposed to give me the goods and services. But I think the point you raised at the last meeting, Mrs. Virgo, keep me honest on this, was more along the lines of how do we assess and what criteria would we use to rate a partnership as being high quality. And some of those items that are some of the criteria that we're considering is whether or not the district receives funding as a part of the partnership. Does the district receive any kind of in-kind services or supports or direct benefits for our students as a result of the partnership? So I do have a rubric that's drafted, and I will send that to the board via email. It would be appreciated if there's some feedback that could be shared with myself, share with me and my team about it, so we can all have the common understanding of what a high quality partnership is.
Sure. Does that rubric also include specifics about I think the goal, I'm sorry, it's not on the screen anymore, but the increased participation in surveys, is that by 1 percentage point, or is that 20%, or what's the metric that we're using for that?
That's a good question. So the survey, I'll tell you that I'm most concerned with from a community engagement standpoint is the Net Promoter Score, which I outlined as having an actual target of 20%. Above all else, that is, I think, the most valuable, and it asks one critical question, that critical question of the likelihood of a person recommending Plainfield Public Schools. That same question can be asked on every survey. It could be asked to a parent, it could be asked to a student, it can be asked to a staff member. It is also, the Net Promoter Score is also an industry standard. I can get back to you on the increase in survey participation because that varies depending on the types of surveys that we've provided so far to our families. So that's a great question. If you give me some grace on that, I will follow up with that via email along with the proposed or the draft rubric for the high quality partnerships.
Is that all, Commissioner Virgo?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hassan.
You're welcome.
All right, I'll now entertain a motion to go into public comment.
Second.
Okay.
They title, you have to read the whole thing.
Okay, please excuse me. We'll have Mr. Cox read the walk-ons prior to going into public comment.
Madam President, at this time, I am administratively pulling board agenda items K21 to be reintroduced at the September's board meeting. And agenda item K22A.
Mr. Hassan, can you repeat that, please?
So, pardon me, that would be item P21. And that item would be reintroduced for consideration at the next board meeting. And item P22A, which is the item listed for the administration building.
Madam President, I also have some items as walk-on agenda items for this evening. There are multiple items, so please bear with me. The individuals here in the public, I will read them as appropriate. Excuse me. The first item will be walk-on agenda item K1 item 73. K1 item 73, and it's for contractual appointments. And it will be for Madeline Carano, pardon me. The effective date will be September 9th, 2024 at a prorated salary of $70,519 assigned as a secretary at Washington Elementary School, Community School, excuse me. The next item will be item M19 for instruction and programs. It will be the Learn and Grow Urban Farming Cook Reimagine. It will be for professional development to teach the teachers as well as the facility and grounds team how to properly authorize the operate the greenhouse previously approved. The next item that we have, Madam President, will be walk-on item P30. It will be an award to K&B Contractors LLC for the following projects. Project A, the Plainfield High School Daycare and Teen Parenting Program Room for new ceiling, lighting, and electrical work in the amount of $85,671. Item B will be for the installation, painting, and securing of 2 new doors to the utility room at Plainfield High School for the amount of $21,550. Item C will be the painting, the scraping and painting of the metal canopies on the 1970 and the 1916 building adjacent to the large parking lot in the amount of $25,820. And lastly, it'd be item D, the painting of the stairwells of the 1916 high school building in the amount of $161,870 for a total of $294,911. The next item will be walk-on item P31. Be it resolved for Pure Tech Group using Ed Data Co-op Award to provide the technology relative to the audiovisual television production room as a part of the CTE program expansion. This technology package will be at a total cost of $1,183,371. The next item will be walk-on item P32. This is a change order similar to what Mr. Hassan talked about, making those adjustments relative to the previously awarded bid number 2021-30, the toilet renovation at Barlow and PHS 1916 building. This change order is for the amount of $69,739.03. Next walk-on item will be for P33. This will be for Premier Business Solutions to provide cabinetry, storage, lockers, and cabinets in the daycare teen parenting program. There are two types of storage cabinets that they are providing. So the first number is for $34,085. The second number is for $16,019 at a total cost of $50,104. The next resolution, we walk on resolution P34. And this is for Hanan Floors. This will be for the floors in the Plainfield High School daycare and teen parenting program room for a total amount of $35,750.80. The next agenda item will be under the Office of Equity and School Improvement. N1, this is an amended walk-on item. One of the staff members, Mr. Sears, was caught in the nationwide shutdown relative to the Microsoft shutdown and could not get back at the conclusion of his previously approved travel for district training. The amendment is being submitted to provide Mr. Sears with the GSA food reimbursement rate of $74 a day for July 20th, 21st, and 22nd when he was allowed to get back home. The next item is P35. And this is for the board to approve the grant acceptance. In the grant, I want to read it to be specific. Unified Champion Schools Grant is a $5,000 award in conjunction with the pilot program established by the Special Olympics, awarding the Plainfield Public Schools a $5,000 grant and establishing the reporting structure needed for that money. The next item is P36. P36 is a change order to the phase 1 portion of the Plainfield High School pool reconstruction. This change order is relative to creating a more efficient and strong structure for the pool decking around the drainage system. The change order will result in a $129,210.81 change order increase with a construction contingency of $25,842.16. The next walk-on agenda item will be P37. P37 is a change order to the shallowing of the pool. As our current contractor went to go putting the pool back together, some cracks were observed in the pool bottom, which results in additional concrete needed to shallowing out that process. This change order results in a $106,250 change order with a $21,250 contingency for construction contingencies. The next item is going to be walk-on item P38. This is an amended walk-on item. The board previously approved travel for board members and executive team members to attend the National School Boards Association CUBE Conference 2024. Commissioner Andrews had not previously submitted to attend this conference. While there is still time to attend, we are amending this agenda item to add Mr. Andrews to that agenda, to that travel, pardon me. And then the last one that I have here is going to be item P39. Item P39 will be a request for the board to approve the renewal, pardon me, of RFP 2023-01 for instructional streaming services. Excuse me, for instructional streaming services to Proximity Learning at a cost not to exceed $250,000. Madam President, I think I've added quite a few. That is all that I have on the walk-on items. We will move those over to there so they are reflected on the agenda at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Cox, Superintendent Hassan, and all of the administrators for that lengthy list of additions to the agenda. We appreciate you. I will now entertain a motion to go into public comment.
So moved.
It's been properly moved by Commissioner Vice President Webb and seconded by Commissioner Malone that the board now open up public comment. At this time, you've heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? There being none, all in favor? All opposed have the same right. Motion carried. Public comment is open. Let me just read the announcement. At business meetings, privilege of the floor will be provided for 30 minutes for the public comment prior to committee reports. Members of the public in attendance will have the opportunity to raise concerns during this period of the meeting. Members of the public may speak once for a maximum period of 3 minutes by the clock. This time is not transferable from one individual to another. Privilege of the floor is now open.
All right. Do we have anybody present in person that would like to come to the mic to speak to the board this evening? Anybody in person before we move on to our virtual participants?
Good evening, everyone.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
My name is Catherine Balch. I live at 1314 Highland Avenue in Plainfield. I'd like to talk tonight about voter education, a new voting tool, and the district website. But first, I'd just like to make a couple of comments about the minutes. In the July minutes, it says that the goal-setting action was administratively pulled. Was that the goals, the district goals or the board goals? If it was for district goals, do you plan to establish board goals this year? If so, when? So that's a question I'll have to answer right now. Also, I noticed that Commissioner Virgo is noted as absent and present at that meeting. So she was noted as absent in the absent column, but then it also noted that she voted for the consent agenda. So that confused me. So now on to voter education. 3 years ago, Dr. Tristan Cox jumped into his new job as supervisor of social studies with some great ideas about student-led civics projects. I was honored to join his civics committee and bring other League of Women Voters members to this effort. The result of this partnership between the district and the league enables you, the board, and Superintendent Hassan to say with great confidence that Plainfield Public Schools comply with the New Jersey law that requires civics education in high school. In the coming election, each voter will decide who they want to lead their nation, state, county, and school district. The National League of Women Voters has developed a website, vote411.org, where you can register to vote, find out who is running, and how they plan to make your life better. Each candidate, including each school board candidate, is sent an invitation to upload their information into vote411.org. Each Board of Education candidate is also invited by Smart Plainfield to educate voters with a YouTube short video filmed by a Plainfield High School graduate. And then about the website, kudos, many kudos to Mr. Payne, Mr. Hill, and the whole communications team for the new website. It represents a tremendous amount of work, which I base on my professional and personal experience in developing websites. And the new district site is definitely an improvement over the previous design. Love the new calendar functionality. It's fabulous. The design is easy on the eye and easy to navigate, with one exception. It also appears to follow many of the web content and accessibility guidelines used by the U.S. government and widely accepted among corporate designers. But I did encounter a couple of roadblocks. Oh, is that my 3 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved by Commissioner Andrews and seconded by Commissioner Gray to extend Mrs. Bulch's time. You've heard the motion. Are you ready for the question?
I think that was.
I'm sorry, I didn't look up. I thought it,
No, so
Mr. Malone,
Miss up the-
my apologies. Motion was by Commissioner Andrews, seconded was by Commissioner Malone. Thank you, Commissioner Smith. You heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? There being none, all in favor? All opposed have the same right. You may continue, Ms. Bulch.
Thank you very much. So the website, I was wondering where the preschool information is. I didn't find it under the schools tab or the parent tab or the community tab. So I was wondering, why is this so hard to find? Doesn't the district want to make it super easy for parents to enroll their child? Don't we want the youngest among us going to preschool so they are prepared for kindergarten? I eventually found the link, but I had to take 3 additional steps to get there. District offices, and then student services, and then something called Division of Early Childhood. 9 years ago when I moved here, I was unfamiliar with the term, and I have been following education initiatives for decades. Now I am not only familiar with the term, but I know the preschools are funded separately from the other schools, which was the reason I was given last year for why the website does not include preschools with the other schools. But your typical parent doesn't know about school funding or really care very much as long as their child can attend for free. These parents go to the website to find out which preschools are near their home and how to enroll their child. So to ensure parents encounter no roadblocks to this vital information, they need at a critical step, first step, into our school environment. Could we please add the word preschool to the top of the schools tab menu? The sort order is by grade level, so preschool should appear first in the list for consistency's sake. As a member of the Early Childhood Advisory Council, I would consider such a change aligns well with the strategic plan in the areas of communication and community engagement. Maybe even more importantly, this change would signal that district officials care about parents. After all, the district depends on parents to send their children to school to reach their maximum potential. And then one other really small thing, but the sort order and the menu list would it be possible to make the schools list consistently alphabetical for the elementary schools? The list includes shortened titles for schools named for George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, George Clinton. So for consistency's sake, again, The newest school in the district should likewise be listed in its shortened form as Booker. I was very glad to see that district goals were discussed tonight. I think that's very exciting. And it was interesting for me to see that the superintendent and the district goals seem to be setting a higher bar for students, not just progress, but proficiency. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Mrs. Bo. With regard to your question about board goals, tonight, we're working towards ensuring that we can get our district goals approved, and we have a process in place to ensure that we meet our responsibilities, but we will adopt, or we will work on in preparation of adopting board goals at a board retreat, of which we are waiting for a date to be finalized by New Jersey School Boards Association. So once we have that date and we can agree on that date that works best for us, we'll publish that date in the public after it's adopted, and then we'll start working on our board goals at that moment.
Good evening, buenas tardes, Laura Miranda Brown, 1345 Highland Avenue. Nice to see you all. I hope you all had a good summer. First of all, I too, like Catherine, wanted to commend the communications department on the website. I also want to thank them for the opportunity to look at the site prior to it going live. I really appreciated the opportunity to see some of the feedback that I'd given over the last year incorporated, especially in the calendar function. It is amazing to be able to click on the calendar and have it automatically populate school closure days, holidays, and any other relevant information a parent might need. It's available via Google Calendar. It's available via Outlook. It really is a huge functionality upgrade that I think parents will really appreciate. So thank you to everyone involved in that. I appreciate your consideration of all my comments. And I really am thankful for the attention that was paid to the site. The detail is tremendous. It looks great. And I think Catherine's suggestions were also very good in terms of alphabetizing things and making things easier for parents to navigate. That Parents tab is a huge upgrade over what we had, but the drop-down menus on the website along the top banner still have a considerable amount of information in that drop-down banner that is not accessible from the actual parents page. So again, removing any barrier for any parent who's quickly trying to navigate, especially on a mobile platform, would probably be really, really helpful. Secondly, I'm really excited to hear about the pilot for the immersion program. I know that it is a touchy subject, and I know people feel very strongly about it, but as somebody who grew up only speaking Spanish in my household, I speak unaccented English because I went to school in a town where we just went to school in English. I entered kindergarten not speaking any English, and at this point, I think we can all agree I am highly fluent. I think it makes a huge difference to children when their brains are sponges to be exposed to language in an authentic and immersive way. Little brains are amazing. They can do amazing things and learn so much faster than the rest of us, and we should give our kids a chance to learn. I had a question about the goals. I think they're all really interesting. I found it a little not unusual, but I'm just curious why there isn't a specific goal tailored to the special education students and a goal specifically tailored to the English language learners. I've come to learn over the last 8 years of attending these board meetings that not all of our English language learners are Spanish language speaking families, right? There are plenty of Arabic speaking families. There are plenty of, Haitian families who join who speak primarily French. So putting a child into a classroom that's 50-50 Spanish, English may not be helpful.
We have a second.
It's been properly moved by Commissioner Andrews and seconded by Commissioner Malone to extend Mrs. Miranda Brown's time. You've heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? There being none, all in favor? All opposed have the same right. Motion carried. You may continue.
Thank you. I just would like a little bit more understanding of why those goals aren't highlighted, right? We have 5 goals. They are very ambitious. I think that is exciting. But those students in particular seem to be having trouble, and making sure that we're holding ourselves accountable to them, I think is really important. Two more questions. I think the goal to increase teacher retention is fantastic. Stability in staff and consistency for students, I think we all know is really critical. And together with that, the student attendance increase, I think, is also amazing. I have observed from my own children's classroom that on half days, sometimes 50% of their class is missing. And it is the first Monday of every month is a half day. And yes, I know that teachers are getting additional training, and I think that's really helpful. But if the first Monday of every month, you only have 50% of your kids in your classroom, from a teacher's perspective, and at least what I've experienced in my own classroom, my kids' classroom is, it's a day where they're not doing as much because half the kids aren't there. And so the curriculum is getting changed. Homework doesn't really necessarily come home that day. I would really encourage everyone to think about increasing student attendance by decreasing the number of half days. In particular, the last week of school is half days. Nobody was here. It was actually pretty sad. My kids came home crying because they missed some of their friends. They weren't in class with their closest friends at the end of the year because their parents didn't have childcare for them for half days. So they just kept them home. And then lastly, there's an add-on addition. There's an add-on to the agenda that is titled Instructional Streaming Services. And I just don't know what that means. And I'm curious if you all can give us an explanation of what that is and how that fits into the curriculum. Thank you all.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Brown. Do you have anybody else in the public in person that would like to come to the mic to speak before we move to our virtual participants? Nick, do we have anybody online?
Yeah.
All right, seeing none in here. Okay, come on, sir.
Good evening. My name is Curtis Young, 8 Andover Avenue here in Plainfield. And I'm brought my concerns concerning the tennis courts, the Donald Van Blake tennis facilities. And I'm really a little confused as far as some of the changes that have been taking place at the courts. And, when the courts were built, they were built as a safe haven for our kids in the community to come out and enjoy the facility and to play tennis, because we were trying to get more kids involved in tennis because of the enjoyment of the sport and the advantages the kids would have playing tennis. It's a non-contact sport, and also it's a sport of a lifetime. And we were trying to expand the knowledge of the tennis community to our community so that we could also get more kids involved in tennis, which would increase the level of play that our high school and middle school would have in competing against other schools in the surrounding communities. It was a positive, inviting. It also was a positive for Plainfield. It was a positive image that other communities appreciated, and it made other communities feel comfortable coming into Plainfield, which is something that it kind of changed the image that Plainfield had in the past. And that was one of the things that one of the reasons we thought that the tennis courts would help Plainfield in the long run. Back in those days, there was a gentleman named Wally Katz, who was a Jewish gentleman from Westfield, and Donald Van Blake from Plainfield, who thought that, if the kids from the communities would exchange or compete or have town tennis, that as they grow older, it would improve the relationships between those communities, not only Westfield, but Scotch Plains, Edison, and other communities. So when the facility was built, it was built in the image of the U.S. Open it had a very receptive image, and people felt really comfortable being in Plainfield playing tennis. So now we kind of gone to, where we're increased the height of the fencing, and it's kind of takes away the image that was originally designed by Sheldon Westervelt, who's also the designer of the US Open. So instead of being very inviting, it seems like the tall fencing and everything that's now there is kind of keeping people out and keeping people away, and it's not as inviting as it had been in the past. This kind of created a little problem with some of the tennis community, mainly because none of the tennis community, including the, as far as I know, was
Motion to extend time.
Second.
It's been properly moved by Commissioner Gray, seconded by Commissioner Smith to extend Mr. Young's time. You've heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? There being none, all in favor? All opposed have the same right. Mr. Young, you may continue.
okay. I just felt that none of the tennis community was involved in some of the decisions that were made in the redesign and the, like I said, the tall fencing and the locking out on the weekends and that kind of thing. I think if some of that information or some of the history had been explained or expressed to the current administration, then some of these changes may have been thought twice about. The main thing is what we were trying to do at that time was really, like I said, get our kids involved in tennis, get our school teams up to a level that they really could compete with other surrounding school districts. And a lot of that was accomplished because, you know, Mr. Van Vleck was recognized as Coach of the Year one year. The facility was recognized by the United States Tennis Association as Facility of the Year. So there were a lot of positive things that were done during that time that I think that we've kind of taken away from it with the new structure. I just think that if some of those things, some of those ideas that would have been shared with some of the people in the community who are very involved in tennis, that we may have second guessed ourselves, and instead of being very open and receptive to the surrounding communities and having that positive image of a facility that's inviting to everybody, we're kind of shunning surrounding communities and people and kids and the local community off away from the courts, and that's not what the original intention was. Also, I think the Plainfield community, who really kind of, you know, was enjoying and took advantage of the facility, and helped that image, that positive image, is kind of not being involved as much as maybe they should have been when these changes were considered. So I just wish that would like for maybe a little explanation as far as why some of these decisions were made. Maybe that's something I'm not aware of. And also at least invite the tennis community here in Plainfield to be part of some of or informed at least of some of the decisions before they incorporate it. Don't do them and then we find out from, you know, just the changes being made, but at least invite the tennis community here in Plainfield and understand the history and the reasoning behind some of the things that were done back in 2001. And that way we can make things a little bit more smooth and not go back to what Plainfield used to be, and continue to be inviting to all the kids in this community as well as surrounding communities. And they will all grow up to be adults who will all get along. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. We do have somebody online that would also like to speak. Nick, can you patch him through, please?
Hello.
Yes, we hear you.
Hi, Justin Gentles, Plainfield. I had 2 points. The first one is I agree with the previous comments about the website. It's very nice, much easier to navigate. So I appreciate all the work that went into that. And my only question for tonight is regarding the readiness to graduate slides. I was curious about the gap between PAWS and the other two schools, Plainfield and Pinnacle. I mean, I know there's smaller class sizes, but that was they're pretty big gaps. I think one was like PAWS was at like 98% in ELA versus 16 at Plainfield, and maybe 40 in math versus 16 at Plainfield. So I was curious about what might be some of the differences between the schools, and can they be can what's working at PAWS be applied at Plainfield since they're in the same district?
Thank you, Mr. Gentles. All right. For the members of the public who we didn't respond to, we'll ensure that you get responses. But if we're done, we don't have anybody else? You have one more? Okay, we do have one more virtually.
Hello.
Hello, we hear you.
Hi, my name is Danielle Barakat. I'm a special ed teacher at Jefferson. I noticed that the uh September, September 24th BOE meeting is on the same night as elementary back to school night. And I was wondering if that could be changed due to the conflict of the two events. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is that the last person?
Make a motion to close public comment.
Second.
It's been properly moved by Commissioner Vice President Webb, seconded by Commissioner Smith, that the board now close public comment. Heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? There being none, all in favor? All opposed have the same right? Motion carried.
All right. Final hour of the night. We want to do consent. Good.
Like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to move the agenda to a consent agenda.
Do we have a second?
The move. It's been properly moved by Commissioner Vice President Webb and seconded by Commissioner Malone that the board move the agenda as a consent agenda. You've heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? There being none, all in favor? All opposed have the same right?
I'd like to
Motion.
make a motion to approve this consent agenda.
Second.
It's been properly moved by Commissioner Vice President Webb and seconded by Commissioner Smith that the board now approve the consent agenda. You've heard the motion. Are you ready for the question?
Mr. Cox, I have a few questions on some of the items. Is this the appropriate time to address those?
Yes, ma'am. The walk-on items, are you saying, or any of the items?
Just on some of P 22, 23, 24. And I had a comment on some of the minutes. I'm
Okay.
gonna wait my turn though, if it's. Others want to go first.
So I also wanted to make a motion to amend one of the, or to amend
So-
the.
For
yeah.
procedural, let's,
Sure.
Mrs. Virgo, you said you had questions on the agenda item or items?
Yes. Yeah,
What was the letter? Did you state the letter?
Oh, sure. So I'm just curious on P 22, the items that remain. I know A was pulled, but P 22, 23, 24. What's the timeline for that? Those are large expenses. I'm just curious what the timeline is. And then how does P 25 parallel with our esports space? I know that we've just opened that space. How does that compare to that existing space? And then just comments quickly. I'll just ask them all at once if that's all right. J3, again, the minutes are not accurate. As Ms. Balch indicated, I'm listed as a yes and absent at the same time. And J1, public comment is significantly abbreviated. Those are not questions, just comments on both of those items. Thank you.
Yes, please. Mr. Hassan will respond.
23 and 24, and we pulled one piece of 22.
I'll start with, I thought she also talked about item P25, so I'll start with that. The AV TV production room. This is a room that's being renovated in the CTE wing of Plainfield High School as a part of our expansion of the district's CTE programming and pathways. That room will serve a a different purpose from the esports room. The esports room serves as a classroom for instruction as it relates to our esports initiative, but also as the room that our students use for practice and for competition, as we now have an official esports team that is currently active and participating in competitions throughout the state of New Jersey.
Separate. That's helpful. Thank you.
And you asked about 22, 23, and 24?
Yeah, just some of those construction items on the agenda. What's the timeline? Some of them are over 500,000. Just what's the timeline for those projects to be completed?
So the item that I would there's the pause components. We are looking at those to extend into Q2 conservatively. But the remaining items that you see, such as the greenhouse project, bathroom renovations, those are projects that we look to actively complete before we open up the school year.
Okay, thank you. And then can you address the minutes? Seems to be a consistent issue we're having with just having them accurately recorded. J3 and J1 were J1, the public comment again was significantly abbreviated, and J3 I'm listed again in both places for having voted but also being absent. Thank you.
Yes. So in your question about J3, Mrs. Virgo, that was literally a inappropriate click, excuse me, due to attempting to use the new board docs platform as we stated, so everything can be taken within the minutes. So there might have just been an accidental click. And in terms of the abbreviation of the public comment, I'm pulling it up now.
The night where a lot of parents and students were speaking about the principal of Barlow.
Okay, gotcha. And so I just wanted to be clear, Mrs. Virgo, that was not to skirt tail any of the intentions of the public comment. But if you remember on that evening, we had a large, significant portion of the individuals who made comments being minor students. There were really only a few adults that were mixed in, and a lot of them were for helping the purposes of assisting the students that came to the mic to speak on that behalf. And so we do not put in the information for minors and students for that purpose. Is there something in particular that you were looking for? Because there were a large amount of students that made comments that evening.
Right. So if I recall correctly, this was a little while ago, but didn't we extend public comment several times that night? I mean, I just would expect for a little more to be reflected there. I know that there were a lot of students and I don't expect that information to be recorded, but there were varying comments from parents as well. And it's sort of a broad statement there. It just seems very abbreviated without any reflection, at least as I'm reading it now, that that we had extended public comment. There was a lot of discussion that night that I think would be helpful in the context of understanding what took place at the meeting.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Greco. Do we have any more questions? Commissioner Gray, you had a question?
I'm just trying to figure out where because my computer is dead, so I'm trying to figure out the document that was sent about the culturally responsive curriculum.
The scorecard?
That the scorecard that the district uses.
You're looking for it?
Yeah, like the document was
this-
sent, which was great. Like I kind of applauded it and said like, yes, this is what I was looking for. Can you send it to Terrence just so I can,
Yes,
please? Thank you.
Okay.
sir.
I forwarded to the entire board.
Did you want to speak to it?
No, I didn't want to speak to, I just wanted
You
to,
just wanted to review it?
like have it in front of me.
Oh, okay,
In my computer.
All right. thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions from commissioners? Okay, Mr. Cox, may you proceed?
Excuse me, you should actually amend the minutes so that they're corrected for the J3.
Oh,
Yes.
Hmm?
So do you need me to formally amend
Just,
that?
yeah, the board should formally amend
Okay,
J3. That last chart has
her absent and
Ms.
voting.
Have her absent voting and actually making a motion.
Yeah,
So-
and it would,
Just to remove the check in the box that says
she was
that
absent.
she's absent.
Okay, so the board should note that I am going to currently amend the meeting minutes for July 9th to reflect that Ms. Virgo was indeed present, as I stated. Clicking in the box was inadvertent in using the new minutes feature that as we try to expand our usage with the board docs platform.
All the way down in the box.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cox.
Make a motion. That's the one.
So now,
No, she's still saying something. Were you still saying something, Mrs. Blackburn?
Excuse me? Yes, that was it.
Okay. I will now call the roll.
one second. I just wanted to motion to amend H3. That's the minutes for finance and operations. Just wanted to capture that we discussed the trail portion that was in the back. That was adjacent to the pond. That's an underutilized area and that could fit well within a STEM program for Cook. And then we also mentioned a portion of the pond was going to be fenced. We had a discussion on that.
Correction, we said that the pond would be fenced around for safety.
For safety, absolutely. And then the possible availability of a bench, you indicated that that's not possible, right?
No, I didn't say it wasn't possible. I said that we would look into the pricing. But as we prioritized last year, the replacement of an improvement of the Cook, we wanted to ensure that any further money was equitable. We were completing a significant amount of projects outside of the playground that had recently been renovated last year for Cook, and that we needed to ensure that we were being equitable across all the other elementary schools. Hence why we were doing the 4 playgrounds that are sensory compliant with sensory elements in those systems at other locations.
And then in terms of like the fencing and everything like that, I didn't see anything in the minutes that said there was a timeline for those things. So is
Yeah.
there a timeline that for like the implementation of these things, like incorporating trail possibly, the fencing for safety?
So the trail, as you remember, Mr. Hassan had weighed in, said that they would do some investigation because it would take some buy-in from the neighbors that are adjacent to that trail.
Sure.
I want the record to reflect that I do not do the committee report. That comes from the committee.
Oh, no, absolutely.
and-
Yeah, and
and
I
the
kind of
timeline.
had the conversation with the chair, so it wasn't seem like a.
No, I just want to make sure,
Yeah.
because for you to say it, and then I just want to make sure that the
Absolutely.
record
So the
reflect
chair-
that's not
Yeah,
our
so
report.
I just want to also state that the chair is responsible for the committee reports and the the review process is what we're engaging in now.
Understood. And in terms of timeline, I can ensure that I meet with Mr. Sutton. As you know, a couple of the items relative to Cook Reimagined and finalizing those projects are on tonight's agenda for approval. Once we ratify that, hopefully in a few minutes, and we get those purchase orders out to the respective vendors, I can work with Mrs. Sutton to ensure that we get a timeline out to the Business Operations Committee for those projects relative to Cook Elementary School.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
All right, can we try this one more time?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I will now call the roll. Commissioner Vice President Webb,
So I reviewed the agenda. I didn't see any items that I would need to abstain or. That'll be a yes.
okay. Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Andrews,
Yes, with the exception of the agenda item. Come on.
okay. Q, so for the record, just so we don't have to go through it, I know some commissioners were already approved for that cube travel. I will note your abstention recusal for it because we brought it back as an amended item to add Mr. Andrews. Mr. Gray?
This is a very tough vote for me in reference to the district goals, but I just wanted to preface it with a conversation about we are going to focus on. Sure. I'm going to preface it with we're going to focus on pay special attention to the subgroup which indicated by our strategic plan, but I would want to see more. I know there was information that was sent to me on the inclusion project. The timeliness of that information about the inclusion project is quite right. I need to, in order to commissioners to effectively consider all the information that's in front of them and vote appropriately, we need the information in a timely fashion. So the inclusion project, there wasn't detailed information from the state indicating how you're going to implement that inclusion project. So I have to respectfully abstain from D2. There just wasn't enough information in order for me to make an educated vote on this matter. And as a parent of a special education student, like that is something that I'm very partial to, very sensitive to. So I have to vote my conscience and abstain from D2. I'm going to be a no for D3, and then P9 to P21, I'm going to be a no. And that's largely because I didn't have enough time in order to come to an effective vote.
Thank you.
So, hold on, I need to hear that list. You said P9?
Yeah, so all the things
Through-
related to the renewal of the textbooks.
P9 through 13.
Yeah.
And that's a no or an abstention?
It's an abstention.
Okay. Are there any other, I can note you for yes for all the others?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I just want to read, because you had a few in your statement, I want to just read it back to you so it's accurately reflected. You are a yes, except for that you are a no on D3, as in Delta 3,
Delta 3 abstention from D2.
and P as in Papa 9 through P as in Papa 13.
Yes, sir.
And
Yep,
then
and
I'm
then-
recusing you from your own revote on the cube travel.
Yes.
Okay.
And then provided that the minutes are updated from H3, I'm a yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Commissioner Johnson?
That's everything. However, I will abstain from K 7, number 8. Just make sure that's still correct. K 7, 8, correct.
Gotcha. Okay. Mr. Malone, Commissioner Malone, pardon.
Yes, I am a yes for everything.
Commissioner Virgo,
Yes, with the exception of D2 and D3, I'm a no for those.
Commissioner President White.
I'm gonna recuse myself from P8. Everything else is a yes.
Madam President, with the recusals, abstentions, and no votes, all motions still pass.
Thank you very much. I'll entertain the motion to adjourn at this point.
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved by Commissioner Vice President Webb and seconded by Commissioner Smith that the board now adjourn this meeting in the public. You've heard the motion. Are you ready for the questions? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. Motion carried, meeting closed at 10:11.
Recording stopped.